This is a topic that comes up on the channel from time to time, and I thought it would be an interesting one to show you. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what a joinery apprenticeship looked like in 1973. I'm lucky enough to have a father-in-law who's a time-served joiner, and he is my mentor for all things woodworking. Thanks, Dave. Top bloke. Anyway, I thought it would be interesting to show you exactly what an apprenticeship looked like way back 1971, 1973 type time in the UK. The apprenticeship is in shop fitting joinery, but the qualifications are in cabinet making. So particularly apt for a lot of stuff that's on this channel and a lot of people who follow this channel. It would be really interesting to compare and contrast against how things are done now. So obviously pop stuff down in the comments. I'll take you through it all. I'll take you through everything from the exams he had to do right through to the final deed of apprenticeship. Basically, the way this worked, it was a 4-year apprenticeship, and the apprenticeship was all handled by a company specialising in shop fitting, and as part of that they paid for him to go to college while he was doing the apprenticeship for the 4 years. So it was 4 years of apprenticeship and 4 years at college. So the college was done kind of in parallel in the evenings and whatnot. And the college side of things was split up into kind of two components by the looks of it. An intermediate certificate in cabinet making and a final certificate in cabinet making. So there was an intermediate exam and then a final exam. I'll show you through all this. I'll show you the intermediate stuff first, which is all this stuff here. So this was back in 1971, and you can see, look at this, the exams, 3 days of exams, 18th of May, 20th of May, and the 22nd of May. So we had 2 days of written exams in the evening, because he wouldn't have been able to go out through the day because he would have been working as part of his apprenticeship. So there was a written kind of theory exam, and then a drawing and design exam, and then a practical test as well. I'll show you the practical test in a minute. He would have probably started the apprenticeship when he was 16, so he would have been 18 at the time he was working his way through these exams. So he would have been an apprentice for 2 years by now, doing his first exam halfway through the apprenticeship. So, what did he have to do? Answer 5 of the following 8 questions. And all the questions have equal marks. So he would have had an answer book to fill all this out in. A rough sawn board is to be planed true, out of winding, and to width and thickness using only hand tools. Describe the method and name all the tools that you use. Make a neat sketch showing how the face mark would be applied. But I'm assuming what they're getting at here is using things like obviously appropriate hand planes, working perhaps diagonally across the wood depending on how big the piece of wood is, working in all directions until you know it's completely flat, using things like winding sticks and a marking gauge. There's actually a really good video all about this. I think Steve Hay did it over on the Woodworking Masterclass YouTube channel. I'll include a link in the description below, but I think that's what they're getting at on that particular one. Question 2. Illustrate with sketches the following types of wood screws. A slotted cheese head screw. So a cheese head screw is like a screw with a cylindrical head. You often see cheese head screws used for like Euro cabinet hinges. And then we've got a coach screw. You know what a coach screw looks like. Posi drive. Best screw around. Whoa, calm down. Posi drive recessed round head. I'm assuming they just mean countersunk. Posi drive recessed round head. What's a recessed round head? Is it the sort that's got a domed head and it's countersunk? I need to look that one up. Right, jury's out on that one. I'm not sure for C. When I've googled recessed round head screw, I'm getting some that just look like normal round heads, and I'm getting some that look like normal countersunk, and I'm getting some that look like round head and countersunk. Pop in the comments if you have an idea of what they're getting at with that one. Slotted countersunk head, that's easy. State 3 finishes that can be applied to steel screws and fittings to prevent corrosion. Again, I'm not sure, would they count, if you counterbore a screw and put a dowel over, would that count as a finish? Certainly, obviously, paint, varnish. In a medium-sized furniture factory, it would be usual to find certain types of sanding machines. Name 4 different types of sanding machines. With notes and simple sketches, describe one of the machines. So you have to go into a bit more detail on what one of the machines would look like. So you could have obviously a belt sander. Would you include maybe a big disc sander? Sanding machines, I don't know if that would include like random orbit and handheld machines. You've got a few different options there. Number 4, manufacturers bought a bundle of 12mm birch ply consisting of 15 sheets. In metric, look at that, 1971, and this is how long we've been in some sort of metric crossover nightmare that we're in the UK. 1575mm long, 1575mm wide, to cut the maximum number of equal pieces of the following size. So you have to work out a cutting plan. That's pretty good. Calculate equal numbers of each piece that can be cut from the 15 sheets, the amount of wasted as a percentage of the amount used. Would you get anything like this in current day apprenticeships? I'd love to know. That's a really relevant question. People should be getting taught that. You do that all the time in real life. The cost of the bundle at a price of £11.84 for 10 square metres. That's a brilliant question. Make neat freehand diagrams of the following: a rhombus, a scalene triangle, a square, a cone, a cube, a cylinder. State the properties of A, B and C and a formula for calculating the capacity of a cylinder, which I'm assuming is pi r squared times the length or the height of the cylinder. With neat freehand drawings illustrate the following: a buttered hinge joint, a tongued mitre, mitred halving, twin mortise and tenon, housed dovetail. Give one example of how each could be used. And number 7, make simple sketches of 4 of the following examples of cabinet metalwork. We've got an espagnolet bolt, a sliding door hook lock, table leg height adjuster, cranked centre pin hinge, a pin tumbler nozzle till lock, and a link joint hinge. You can Google all of them. Sketch neatly 4 of the following hand tools and appliances. So we've got a hand screw, brace, a side rebate plane, a countersink bit, a holdfast, pad or keyhole saw, and a side fillister plane. Good questions. This isn't even the final exam, this is just the intermediate exam. And then a couple of days after that exam, which is not easy, some of the questions on that would challenge me. And then 2 days later, he's got the drawing and design exam. Another 3-hour exam here. And here's what he has to do. A small wall writing cabinet is shown. The carcass is to be in hardwood and the full front veneered on suitable fabricated board. You're required to make a working drawing which must include the following: a front elevation plan and sectional end elevation to a scale of 1 to 5, a full-size section through the full front hinge joint, full-size section showing method of supporting and fixing cabinet to the wall. So it's a design job, full elevations, plans, sectional designs. And then once you've done that, so that's like putting together something along the lines of this sort of thing. I'll come to this in a minute. And then inscribe 3 circles in an equilateral triangle with a height of 95mm, each circle to touch 2 sides of the triangle and 2 other circles. All construction lines must be clearly shown. So this is completely separate to that by the sounds of it. And then make an isometric drawing of one end of a table rail, 86mm deep, 32mm thick, showing a haunch tenon with scribed shoulders to suit a turned leg, 62mm in diameter. And construct a rectangle with a proportion of 1 to the square root of 2. So 1 to the square root of 2, and indicate thereon the diagonal. Could you do that off the top of your head? So that was the Thursday, and now he's on to the Saturday of his intermediate practical test in cabinet making. 4-hour practical test. So this is where, let me just zoom out a bit so you can see this plan. So basically he would be given this plan and a whole bunch of wood and wood tools. You should have the following for this examination. I'm assuming they would be provided and he wouldn't have to provide his own tools for the practical test. But here's all the tools that he would need. A smoothing plane, shoulder plane, rebate plane, router plane with a 1/4-inch cutter, tenon saw, dovetail saw, coping saw, beveled edge chisels, spoke shave, flat face, mallet, hammer, drills, wheel brace, screwdrivers, marking gauge, mortise gauge, sliding bevel, tri-square, blah blah blah. And then the materials. All timber to be carefully selected and must be mild working, free from curly grain and defects, and planed to a good surface. Again, this is 1971, so he's only halfway through his apprenticeship, 2 years into it here. And he's basically being given this and a stack of wood and told to make it. So we've got a plan view here. This is looking down on the top of it. And then we've got the front elevation here and then the end elevation here. So here's a 3D version sketch diagram here. So if you're looking down onto that face, this is what you're going to see. The dotted line shows that this is going to be coming all the way underneath here, and you're going to have to interpret all of these plans to make this final actual model. And it says here you're going to need one piece, 130mm by 95 by 19, so it's basically all 19mm stock. And it goes through, it tells you all the bits that you're going to need. One steel countersunk wood screw. Make the test piece exactly as shown on the drawing, setting out the dovetails, pin tenons, shaping, grooving, rebating and drilling to the size as shown. The work should be left smooth from the plane, not sandpapered. All the pieces must be assembled dry, no glue to be used. You can't cheat and hold it all together with glue. It's got to be nice firm joints all the way around. So you've got the dovetails at the top here. We've got this section here, tenoned into the bottom section. You can see on here where it's tenoned in. And we've got this section here which is tenoned into this bottom flat section. Can you see where that rebates down? We've got a 45-degree chamfer all around that top edge. Not easy when you're 18 years old. Again, could I make that in 4 hours from bare stock? Not straightforward. Could you make it? I might make it one day. That'll be a good video. And then, after all that, we're not done yet. So that's his intermediate one, done and dusted. And then, 2 years later, 1973, we're on to the cabinet making final exam. I'm assuming there would have been a practical to go with this, I'm not sure. So this is a design and construction exam, 4-hour exam. And what he's got to do for this is design a desk for use in the office of the managing director of a large company. So you've got to design a big fancy desk basically. Simple lines are required with the accommodation arranged as follows. A double pedestal desk with enclosed front, or a desk L-shaped in plan, so an L-shaped desk, or a writing desk with a separate movable pedestal. Provision must be made for 2 telephones, and the minimum accommodation should provide for A4 filing and 2 shallow drawers or trays. Ample top area is required. Your drawing should include a plan front and rear elevations, end elevations, or sections as appropriate. The main dimensions must be shown. Special details should be drawn to an enlarged scale. A perspective sketch may be included. A specification giving details of materials, finish, drawer extensions, slides if used, locks and handles is required. Do not prepare a cutting list. And once he's done all that, as I say, I'm not sure if he had a practical test to go with that, but bearing in mind he's now completed 4 years of his on-site apprenticeship with the company that he was working for, which was Shop Fitters. And then, check this out. So look at this. So first of all, he would have got the intermediate certificate. So this was back in 1971. And then in 1973, he completed the final certificate in cabinet making. So that was him fully qualified as a cabinet maker. But then on top of that, then we've also got the apprenticeship itself. So this is to certify that he has completed an approved apprenticeship in the craft of shop fitting joinery. And look at that, it's all got the original seal and all that sort of thing on it, 1973. So effectively he's qualified as a cabinet maker, but he's completed an apprenticeship in shop fitting joinery. How awesome is that? But I've saved the best bit till last. So check this out. This is the deed of apprenticeship. There's only so much of this I can show you because it's quite confidential, some of it. But this basically goes through and sets all the terms and conditions for being an apprentice. So on the front, we've got the deed of apprenticeship, and the date that this was all set up. So this would have been before he started any of the studying or anything. This is a contract established between the apprentice and, well, technically between the apprentice's parents, because the apprentice was too young to sign up to any contract at this point. So it's a contract between the guardian of the apprentice and the company who he's going to be doing the apprenticeship with. So the National Joint Council for the Building Industry is establishing this deed of apprenticeship. And it goes through all of the terms and conditions of what this means for both the apprentice and the master. The apprentice, of his own free will and with the consent of the guardian, hereby binds himself as an apprentice in the craft of a shop fitter. So it basically started in 1969, ended in 1973. And this goes into all these binding terms and conditions that the apprentice has. All sorts of stuff in here. The apprentice shall not during the continuance of the apprenticeship engage in any other occupation or business whatsoever which might interfere with the successful carrying out of his apprenticeship. So forget about working 2 jobs at the same time, that ain't an option. And there's all sorts of things in here just confirming that the master is going to pay for the qualifications that the apprentice has to complete as part of the apprenticeship. And then on the final page we've got all the signed, originally stamped deed. And then interestingly, over on this right hand side here, we've got endorsement of deed of apprenticeship. And it's basically saying that we, the master and the representative, hereby certify that this deed of apprenticeship terminated. So this is basically saying it's done and dusted and he's completed the apprenticeship, finished on 21st of July 1973, and has been faithfully complied with and is hereby endorsed in accordance with the provisions of clause, well, whatever. We further certify that during this period of the apprenticeship, the apprentice has attained the following qualifications. So the intermediate cabinet making certificate 1971 and the final cabinet making certificate in 1973. There you go. I thought it'd be nice to just document a bit of history from, as I say, 1971, 1973 joinery apprenticeship. Pop in the comments below how that compares to how things are done now. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe. I shall see you next time.